You're listening to The Big Lift, the podcast of WebTrends Optimize, the CRO solution that enables marketers and developers to maximize the ROI on their digital properties. WebTrends Optimize is a powerful, feature-rich and easy-to-use solution, all delivered within a fixed-price contract with no additional cost for increased functionality ever. During these podcasts, we meet some of the key influencers within the marketing and conversion world to understand their roles and examine their challenges. Website migration is a challenge for many established businesses. But how do you cope with a complex, multifaceted site like Goodwood.com? Today, I'm talking with Simon Gardner, Head of Digital Product at the Goodwood Group, about how they're working through the transition process, focusing on which products they're using and why they found them useful. Simon, you've been within the Goodwood Group. At the moment, you're Head of Digital Product, but you've been in the Goodwood Group for about nine and a half years, something like that.
Yeah.
And looking at your website, it's amazing. You've got things like events, motorsport, horse racing, hotels, restaurants, weddings. The list is quite exhaustive. I haven't gone through all of those. So how does it work? What are the challenges of a multifaceted website?
John, hi. Thanks for having me here, and great question. The challenges are definitely multifaceted with this business. I suppose a few of the key things is a lot of the kind of usual tactics and methods by which you'd show stuff through websites, through apps, they often don't apply. So say, for example, you're running a retail website. There's a lot of design language and mechanisms that are standard across a lot of e-commerce websites that will be recognizable to customers. When you're straddling an awful lot of different verticals, like you say, hotel booking, event booking, membership management, golf, tee times, and a whole number of things like that, what works for one vertical doesn't for another. And it's especially relevant to the world of CRO, where we would try to put an experiment live, but to find something that's actually relevant for one of those particular user journeys, our traffic is going to be smaller for that particular journey because it's spread across so many different things people can do that it's really hard to get the numbers in to reach statistical significance. So we spend a lot of time going, all right, what can we do that's going to have a positive impact on hotel booking whilst also affecting our event sales?
So it's not just the events and all the different things. You've got things like the Festival of Speed, the Goodwood Revival, members meeting, the Qatar Goodwood Festival, everything that seems to be what I would say is a short-lived program, but many, many, many of them. So do you have a large team of people that's helping you do all this?
Yeah, I've got a really, really solid team actually supporting me. And yeah, in a nutshell, the way I operate things here is we have our kind of acquisition and content function, which is KPI'd around get the audience in, make sure we've got content that keeps people coming back, make sure we're doing well for organic and referral traffic. That then sort of hands over to our conversion team, headed by Claire, who takes care of kind of trading, conversion, those sort of tactics, working with the business to say, here's the particular thing we want to push. Oh, that thing's nearly sold out. Let's merchandise things differently. So she kind of picks up from our acquisition manager. And if you imagine those are the two eyes, then the smiley face that underpins it is my man Steve, our UX manager, who straddles both design and development. He's an absolute powerhouse on both, actually. And again, he's produced a big design system as part of our website project, and brings an awful lot of energy and expertise. Then we have a number of other teams that we'd work with. There's also a large number of teams within other divisions, for example, our content production team or our different marketing teams. So we function as a bit of a kind of central digital agency that supports those different teams with their different needs. But obviously, as you say, the whole estate is punctuated by these massive moments, your flagship events like the Festival of Speed. And then, some of my funnest experiences at Goodwood have been working very, very different roles over those events. For example, one year I was lucky enough to chaperone a bunch of motorsport influencers, which essentially means you've got these chaps walking around constantly filming themselves talking. You never know if they're talking to you or they're actually recording themselves talking to their audience for some video later. And I had the distinct pleasure of having to get a number of them from one side of the event to the other on a short time frame. Commissioned this dude on a golf buggy. He's driving them from one part of the event to another, hits this pothole, and next thing I know, there's a couple of influencers sprawled out on the grass. And I'm suddenly sitting there thinking, this is the end of my professional career. Read the headline now. Simon breaks legs of motorsport influencers. But I mean, everyone was absolutely fine, and they absolutely loved it, and made for some great content. So it's those kind of unexpected moments and things that we get involved in that means even with smaller teams, we're all able to support each other and make great things happen.
So the reason we're having this discussion is you're going through a website migration at the moment. And like many hundreds, thousands of companies, that's one of those things that is a milestone in most people's careers within a particular organisation. And obviously looking at, we've discussed earlier, the multifaceted element of your business, it must be, I won't say horrendous, but exciting, panicking, so many balls up in the air at so much time, juggling Sutton, as many analogies as you like with regard to, gosh, this is going to be complicated. So what kind of tools are you using and why do you use them was probably a good base for most people who are listening to this as to, Christ, I'm going to be doing that in 6 months. How can I get some advice? So what are the kind of list of tools you've got?
Yeah, sure, John. I'll take you through some of the tools we've used, and hopefully some of it will be handy. FigJam was our tool of choice for capturing all of our stakeholders' requirements right at the start of the project. Getting groups of people together, asking them what's working, asking them what their objectives are now, and crucially, what they're going to be focused on in a year or two. With a project like this, we've got to think ahead to when we're launching what will be relevant then. Obviously, Miro, Mural, there's lots of those kind of online whiteboarding tools. That was absolutely invaluable. If somebody's found a way of using AI or whatever it might be to automatically take all of that slightly unstructured information and put it into a nicer structure once it's been captured, I'd be all ears, because that for us was quite time consuming, but really useful having those requirements in place.
With a very complex site like yours, FigJam must have been an absolutely wonderful tool. So I could think for a less complicated site, it's going to be a great tool for people who don't have so many things to juggle. So where did you move on there? What other tool did you use from that bit?
Yes, so once we had all our requirements down, we did quite a lot of user testing. So we used, literally usertesting.com is the platform that we've been making use of. We uploaded sublists of existing customers, so we could have people who are already using the website quite a lot and have very specific requirements, gathering some qualitative feedback from them, and then also kind of pushing it out there. Really nice thing about that tool is being able to say, I'm looking for people within this age bracket that maybe have this type of job or income level or these types of interests, and then getting the kind of audience that you're targeting anyway to be the type of people that are giving feedback. So that was really beneficial. Obviously, one of the challenges there is the amount of time it takes to kind of analyze and gain insight from qualitative feedback, but there's a number of features within that platform that help speed that up. Once we sort of had a lot of that information in place, we moved into the design phase. And again, like Figma's been such a useful tool for us. It's like I say, FigJam for a lot of that requirement gathering and sort of initial brainstorming. But then we've actually been building up a full design system within Figma. So this is where we can basically mock up, kind of fully design, dragging in images, checking copy lengths, viewing how it looks in mobile. We can do all of that within Figma. Which is great for less technically focused marketers getting involved and not having to learn the intricacies of a CMS.
Yeah.
And also, different general managers around the business easily being able to view stuff before it's actually been developed, weigh in on design. I mean, at Goodwood here, His Grace, the Duke of Richmond, the chairman and owner of the business, he's kind of the de facto creative director, and he's got such an amazing background and history within the creative arts, and such a kind of keen eye for detail and composition. It's incredibly handy to be able to say, here's exactly how this image will crop on this particular device, just to make sure that things are looking completely right. And having this design system in Figma means that we could change, for example, the text size on a hero block, and then we know that change will carry through to all of the different mock-ups that we have. In fact, the thing I was really proud of when one of the developers that we were handing over our designs to, so we had our components then designed in Figma, we were handing them over to developers. One of them said it was the finest quality annotation of designs that they'd ever seen when receiving them for development, which was positive. Obviously, inevitably, there's always difficulty when moving from design to development, and we've used Bugherd and Storybook have been a couple of really useful tools there. So obviously Storybook is just the way of building out the front end components. It's also to my previous point about not having in-house developers. Obviously, costs can rack up really quick when you're getting everything built by contractors and agencies. A really useful thing about Storybook is it allows folks like Steve and my team who are comfortable doing front end, but aren't like optimizedly certified back-end developers. He can still tweak and work on front-end components, which then our external devs can pick up and actually code into the site. So that's been a lovely new process that we put in place. And then, like I say, Bugherd, really simple, but really handy. We just put it across our staging sites. You can flag things, tag it as content, tag it as copy, tag it as a development piece or a CMS change. And then it's just really useful because it already captures the page. You can do little screenshots, little videos all within the platform. So it just speeds things up.
So have you used CRO in the old site? And are you using CRO in the new site? Because obviously testing with regard to what it kind of looks and feels like with regard to some of the products you've got here, which is Figma, may not necessarily translate into the right number of clicks, etc. So have you gone down that road yet?
Yeah, we've never as far as I wanted to, but over the years we've done quite a bit with CRO. We started with Qubit actually a few years ago. We've also used the tool Monetate, and obviously most recently working with you guys with Web Trends Optimize.
Yeah.
And it's been really nice to see the evolution of that industry over time. So, I mean, I remember one test that we did incredibly well was just ways in which we showcase a marketing sign-up message. And we actually ended up having different methods for different parts of the site, according to sort of what worked best. The B2B method for sign up is a little bit different to the kind of louder, more exciting, you're on the Festival of Speed section. And yeah, that performed really, really well. The other part of CRO I massively appreciated, I report to the CFO here, and it's so nice being able to take kind of design language, but actually start to put ROI against it. Or it's put, here's empirically how changing engagement rates. And then that allows us to invest more resource in that space. I think one of the challenges we've always had with CRO is without the in-house development, what feels like a fairly trivial test can sometimes become quite complicated. But that's one of the reasons why we're kind of cleaning up our code base and doing this project is to make our website a much simpler, structured foundation to test upon. So yeah, very excited to be using Web Trends Optimize for a lot more. And actually, John, we've squeezed in where we're trying to spend so much time building this new site. It's easy to kind of let the current pot boil over, So
yes,
we've run a few tactical tests on our current site. I mean, simple things, for example, to try to get more group bookings for our horse racing events. We use a fun little kind of confetti piece and a nice little UI. A kind of counter that's showing, you're 3 tickets away from a 20% discount. And again, we've got really good results from that sort of stuff. Yeah, and we're now looking at, building out a proper program. We've got Claire, who's in this conversion optimization role. And so she's already got a kind of backlist of prioritized experiments and tests that we'd like to run once the site is live. And I'm sure we'll be adding to that between now and launch.
You've not launched your new site yet. You're still in the process of launching it. When's the date?
Oh gosh, you're going to get me to commit to it on a recording. So we're
just sometime in the future.
Definitely more than 2 weeks, fewer than 8 weeks. I'd say it's all being well. We'll be launching early June. Is what we're going for with, and I'm really keen to actually do this. I want to do a kind of full internal launch. So obviously we have kind of stakeholder review sessions and approval and everything, but I want to just essentially be able to put the site completely live to an internal audience and then just have at least a couple of weeks for staff to click through, find information, give us feedback. I mean, one of the big aims of this project was to kind of tell the Goodwood story better. There's so much history here. There's so much stuff that happens. We've done everything we can to capture that information. But sometimes it'll be, a chap who works in forestry who's got that particular story about the reintroduction of a pine marten or whatever. And so them kind of providing us that little tidbit of information, that's the sort of stuff that we can make sure we get just right and kind of elevates the whole piece. So yeah, it's a lot of that finessing and making sure the storytelling is just right. That's what we're kind of crowdsourcing from the wider business during the last couple of weeks of the project.
So you're going out as one big bang. You're not kind of releasing one side of the business early and then doing another business and then doing another business. It's all at once. Every particular element of your business is going live on the new site at some point in the future.
Yes, so we are essentially, yes, we considered, can we pick a certain section? I mean, in the end, a lot of it's about performance.
Hmm.
There's so many dependencies in terms of, your JavaScript libraries, your CSS and everything that we found to be quite a lot more work to say, just pick our motorsport editorial and change that without changing anything else. So we're essentially going kind of big bang launch. But ways to mitigate that risk are one, a few of the tests that we've done over the last year have been bringing in elements of the new design and layout into the current site,
Hmm.
just to make sure there's no clangers there. And we're exploring doing a kind of, it'll be a full switch, but not for all traffic. So we'd say, 5%, 10% of traffic for the first couple of days is seeing the new site, everyone else is seeing the old site. Check the analytics, make sure there's no underlying issues, and then just kind of ramp that percentage up. Obviously, challenges there around kind of hosting and performance, but it looks like our developers have found a way. So that's the current plan.
That's great. Now, one of the things, I know you're not quite there yet, having released the site, but I suppose one of the things that you do is, as you're doing this, you learn along the way. And I know hindsight is a wonderful thing. So what's gone well, and where could you have done a little bit better? And obviously, your boss isn't going to listen to this anyway, so you could be perfectly truthful.
Yeah, good question. So in terms of things that have gone well, as I say, that design through to build pipeline of having a structured design system in Figma, leading to mockups, leading to Storybook, leading to the ability to branch our code base. Different people can develop blocks, hand them over. The main developers check it, put it into the kind of main track and publish it. That whole kind of design, development, publishing cycle is really nice to have in place. Other things that have been great is it's kind of the less sexy stuff for the end user, but for us in the team, it's really lovely. Is the structured data.
Yeah.
So, kind of saying within our database of FAQs, tagging them all properly so that they are much easier to search and for us to find. Actually having a database of quotes where we can assign the different business areas, because those sort of kind of content libraries currently they just sit on hundreds of different laptops and hard drives throughout the business.
Yeah.
So pulling that stuff together and centralizing it's been useful. We've done the same with our imagery as well. Actually, we've integrated Binder and Asset Manager into our website. Had really good results with that as a way of speeding up our flow of finding and approving and updating all of the imagery. So yeah, that's all been really positive. I suppose in terms of challenges, what one of the big ones has been is like there's a temptation when taking hundreds and hundreds of web pages. They're all doing different things. They're telling a lot of stories. When the pressure's on, when there's an awful lot to do and not a huge amount of time to do it in, there's always the temptation to essentially kind of just copy and paste what's already on the current platform and bring it over and say, well, here's the new version of doing what we've got already. And I wish we'd found more ways of spending more time just thinking about that layout, thinking about the kind of priority of content on the page, and just sort of going through the website as an end user would, and making sure that it just feels right.
So I think that's where I was kind of headed for. Is it just a copy and paste the content? And obviously there has to be an element of that in anything, because it's just such a big task for somebody that's perhaps only got one business area, but you've got so many. It must be an enormous task to go through each and every piece of content. And I think, one of the benefits of the CRO tools that you're using is definitely to be able to, once it's done, you can then optimize the potential of your website content. And I think that's useful, because if you're taking whatever was in content on your old site to your new site, okay, you might massage it a little bit, but you can then test it to see what works and what doesn't work, to be able to then make those changes, to be able to be much more, I suppose, fruitful, productive, profitable on the changes that you've made using your CRO. So I don't know any company that's lifted the content entirely from one to the other. I'm not saying you've done that, but I think most people try to do changes along the way, and that just makes the finishing post just stretch further and further and further away from actually just being able to say, let's just get the design and the build and the new system all up and running, and then we can look at the content in much more depth. Things seems like a great way to be doing it.
Oh, John, 100%. Yeah. In fact, a couple of points on that actually that have been quite useful for us. One is a very simple categorization of pages into essentially priority 1, 2, and 3.
Mm-hmm.
So then we can say, right, these sort of, I don't know, 100 or so web pages represent the most important parts of the business. So a lot more time and attention is spent on curating that content. And then just a little example of one of the tests we will be doing. Yeah, we were just reviewing our kind of meetings and events webpage, and we're thinking, well, how do we, great, it's very functional, but can we bring in this new element that's going to have a bit more of a storytelling piece? So then we're saying, well, actually, how prominent should that be? Is this more for executive assistants that just need to see that some certain boxes are ticked and fill in an inquiry form, or does it need to do a better job of selling the dream? That's where, one of the first tests we'll be putting through WebTrends Optimize when we go live is, do we place that kind of storytelling element high up the page above the more functional stuff or below? And yeah, it should be really interesting to see how that stuff works.
Yeah, because I think, your website has got the great potential for storytelling. You've got so many aspects of different things. You've got so much glue that holds it all together. You've got history that's being attached to it. So people, when they go to your site, I'm sure are looking for that kind of story to be told to them in every different page in which they click. How can I see the glue that's there? Yes, I feel comfortable. Yeah, I feel more comfortable as each page they click on goes further. But certainly, I would think an extension of that is probably trying to be able to tell that story through personalization. Is that something you're looking at as well?
It is. Yes. So I suppose one of the methods, it's interesting when you say kind of put storytelling with personalization. I kind of look sometimes at a website, you've got the sort of holy trinity of things that it needs to cover, right? There's the kind of brand element of the triangle. There's the kind of commerce and the kind of, the actual KPIs, this is still a functional asset for a business. And then you've got actually just providing information.
Yeah.
So for example, basic opening times, locations, all that sort of stuff. And so when it comes to the brand element and the storytelling part, we've got some really fun ways, actually. Like we've got a few hundred little brand stories. If you imagine, they're just a kind of a sentence or two that might talk about, the menagerie that used to exist beneath Goodwood House, where these exotic animals would exist back in the sort of back in the 18th century. We built those in a way that we can kind of pepper certain parts of the website with these stories based on the sort of content someone's looking at. So, if someone's reading about the estate, we could bring in a little brand snippet that talks about our biomass boiler and how kind of Goodwood's moving towards using our own energy source, sort of existing off grid. But then with personalization, we've done quite a lot around almost treating parts of our website like our own internal ad server. So we could say, for example, John, if you go, you're really into the flying experiences part of the website, then later you're coming back to the homepage or you're coming back to the wider What's On calendar. We've got spaces where we've built really nice looking promotional videos and kind of little adverts for lots of different business areas. And then because we know that you've shown more of an interest in aviation, we show that promotion an awful lot more of the time. And one of the key balances here is about proportion. So we still want to be able to serve things that people aren't aware of, but we know that to get the best results, we need to focus more on what that person's had an interest in already.
And that will make them more sticky, I'm sure. It's one of those things. It's the more you know about somebody, the more you can engage them, and the more they're engaged, the more they'll keep coming back, which is pretty phenomenal.
100%. In fact, I'm happy to say just recently we got so Goodwood has a 10-room, really, really wonderful kind of private hunting lodge or sort of sporting lodge called Hound Lodge. And it's an inquiry form online to book it. So again, we started doing exactly that. When people are viewing pages that relate to that part of the business or viewing that business area itself, we then show that stuff more prominently. And we've seen a nice increase in inquiries since we've been taking this personalized approach to showcasing it. So yeah, really positive results. Because again, when you're trying to sell an awful lot of different things, it's really hard to make sure that everything has the right level of visibility that it needs.
Going forward, obviously, once you've done this migration, it's all running properly. Are you thinking that tools such as the CRO tool, WebTrends Optimize at the moment, will actually help you, and I think we've covered it a little bit earlier on in the conversation, to help you to accommodate more resources for your business to actually grow further? Obviously, there's an ROI, and obviously, as you've got so much complications and you're doing some in-house and some out of house, Would it be a justification for getting more people in to help you? Because this sounds like a mammoth task that you're doing with relatively few people.
Yeah, I mean, we're really lucky here. I mean, the Herculean effort of updating and building the content that exists in our products sits within my team, but also the different marketing and content teams around the business. So that there's an awful lot of people that weigh in. But when it comes to the kind of the technical skills of coding, designing, and updating things, off the back of tests and actually building those tests, obviously, there's less resource. Um, what works really well here is being able to have the way I'm approaching it currently is we have different leadership teams for different divisions. So Claire's going to be going to those teams later in the year, ideally quarterly, to basically say, here's the tests we've been running, here's how those things are performing, here's the incremental uplift that we're seeing off the back of these tests, and therefore here's what we're proposing for the next quarter or the next half. What works well there is essentially, if you've got, say, the managing director of the events business is saying, oh, yeah, I really like that test. I can see how I'm selling more, our average order value for horse racing has increased because more people are buying, are putting more tickets in their basket, then he's going to be a kind of another engaged stakeholder. Absolutely. That's basically saying to my boss, the CFO, oh, I love what's happening with the testing there. And therefore, when it comes to budgeting, we can say, well, here's our budget that we're allocating towards tests. And then it's essentially up to me whether that's better spent hiring people in-house or better allocating it towards agency retainer or sort of one-off contracted builds. But either way, it's the storytelling off the back of the tests and the experiments which will help us to grow internal resource. And I've always got to be realistic here. It's very easy when you work in specialist digital functions just to think, well, man, everyone comes in. It's the window into the brand. So surely, if 80% of people's first experience of Goodwood is through Goodwood.com, then 80% of the business's budget should be going on making this thing amazing. But we've got to be realistic about how much inventory we actually have available to sell. What that has to be balanced with how much we're investing in better selling that inventory. So I always love it when new things crop up in this business, whatever the next Goodwood insurance or whatever the kind of next product or next event is that we're doing. It's another opportunity to reach a wider audience and to kind of justify business growth.
Sounds like that's another fire hose that's going to get turned on.
It's never turned off, I'll be honest. Yeah, definitely.
So, Simon, it's been really fascinating. The whole aspect of Goodwood is well known. It's a big brand. It's got lots of different elements to it, and I'm really impressed with the way that you do it with a relatively small team. And I know it's diverse in different areas with regard to content, but it seems very seamless when you're on the website. And I can only put that down to the management of being able to understand all those different elements and continue to juggle all those balls that are in the air to make it all work. I do wish you the best of luck for the next month or so, or how long it's going to take you to realise this new website. I'll actually put it in my browser to be able to remind me every few weeks just to be able to take a look and see what the website is like. But for now, I think you will have helped a number of people who are going through the same sort of problems of migration from an old to a new site. And I think that your excitement and your enthusiasm can only be commended, because if you've still got enthusiasm and excitement and passion after going through this for many months, I'm sure, then hopefully people will absorb that and go and face their own challenges with a whole new optimism.
Yeah, John, thank you. Really kind words. Honestly, really appreciate it. And look, it's a great point. Like, we've got to be passionate about this stuff. Like, it's sometimes it's easy to forget how lucky we are that I don't know. Maybe I'm a bit of a nerd, but like the ability to combine creative pursuits, kind of artistic endeavors, with data-driven, more almost kind of scientific approaches to building things. It's a sweet spot that I never get bored of. And doing it for a company that has so many wild things that we put out into the world, it's a really fun place.
Simon, your enthusiasm is infectious. I wish you all the best, and we'll no doubt speak in 6 months or so, see how it all went, and see what lessons you've learned post migration.
Looking forward to it, John.
So, Simon, thanks again.
Yeah, thank you. Right, Take care, John. See you later.